often do all of you read the newspaper and hear stories that bring a smile and a warm place to your heart? Can I see a show of hands?
Not too often.
Well, you guys must be the odd ones, because I often find when I read the newspaper, it's filled with doom and gloom. I mean, just this past weekend, I took a look in the Los Angeles Times, and when I looked in that newspaper, there were 3 common themes: corruption, deceit, and lies. I said, well, maybe that wasn't a fair assessment. I looked in Sunday's paper, the Daily News. I figured I'd give them a fair shot. I looked in that newspaper, local page, 9 pages of stories, 3 stories that had anything nice to say. It's really hard. If I didn't come to this Kiwanis Club, I'd feel the world is a pretty miserable place because there's so much bad news that's out there. And I decided maybe there's something I could do as a college instructor to change my students' perspective on this world that we live in. And I don't want to take entire credit. It comes from a very important book. The author's name is Tony Hsu. It's called The Pursuit of Happiness, The Pursuit of Profits, and of Purpose. If you're not familiar with this book, this is the leader of a company that started out as an online shoe store. He's gone on to sell clothing and household wares. In his company, he promotes happiness. And it's the 8th best company in the United States to work for. And so let me tell you a little bit about his book, because that's where my idea was born, The Random Act of Kindness. In his book, he goes and talks about going to a grocery store. There's a person behind him. He says, I'll go ahead and take care of him. He leaves. He comes back the following week, and when he returns the following week, the cashier searches him out and says, I wanted to know why you did that. And he said, just because. I'd like for you to go ahead and continue this random acts of kindness. And he walked on his way. And as I heard that story, I thought to myself, wow, is that something that I can go ahead and bring to the students in my classroom? These random acts of kindness. And so as the semester began, I teach at 3 different places, and I decided to walk in on the very first day and tell my students that I'd like you to go out and do this random act of kindness. Do an act. Go ahead and talk about the person you did it to. How did it make them feel? And how did you feel in your own heart? When I started this, I didn't know if they would take me seriously. Maybe this would be a one-day event. Maybe we'd do something else next month. But when we actually went ahead and did this, the stories are truly amazing. Today, I'd like to share with you how this random act of kindness helped me as a college instructor and how I think it can help all of you as local business people. So let me tell you about my students. I teach at Los Angeles City College, and I teach international students from all around the world. I teach at, through LA City College, I teach at Roybal High School, downtown, inner city, Temple and First Street, not the best neighborhood. And then I teach off in Santa Monica. Some of you might think a little better off. And those students in the last 2 places learn public speaking. Many of you are quite powerful speakers, but the #1 fear that people have, they'd rather die than stand up and give a speech. When they're required to give a speech, they'd rather do their speech, just sit down, leave, done, finished, and over with. My ESL students, they have even greater trepidation. What if I stand up and I make a mistake and I say something wrong? That would be horrible. And yet, the most amazing thing happened when these students got up and told these stories. 3 incredible things. The students who were a little scared to go ahead and stand up and speak, suddenly came across and they had this incredible confidence. Students who were normally used to going ahead and looking at their notes, thinking about their next speech, what they were going to do when they got out of class, were peeled. Their eyes were following each and every word that they said. And the best part of all, when they were done, there was this feeling of peace, calm, and serenity that overtook the entire classroom. Could you imagine if that feeling was part of your life on an everyday basis? Let me tell you about some of those stories. I'd like to begin with my students in downtown Los Angeles who attend Roybal High School. And the first story is a woman by the name of Sophia. Sophia is a student who had a long day of school. And you know today's kids, they have lots of activities during school and after school. She spent the whole day there, and there were 7 other kids, and they were all hungry. They had about an hour ride on the local buses that they took to go ahead and get home. She lived just a little bit closer, so she said, I've got a little bit of money. Maybe I can run home and heat something up and bring it back to my friends. And maybe it won't stop them from starvation, but they'll feel that much better as they ride home. This is a student who gets breakfast handouts and who gets the school subsidy lunches, and there aren't seconds if you want them. And she wanted to help out her classmates. And then there was a story of Rachel. Rachel was in the college transfer center. There's one lady, her name is Aurora Martinez, and she deals with the hundreds of kids who want to get to the next place. And there's a long line to go ahead and see Aurora. And so Rachel decided as she was sitting and waiting in line, she would talk to the juniors who were there and share with them how to get into college. You know, it's really important the grades that you get. You don't only get good grades right now. They have to be really good all the way through. And if you want to go to college, you need to do this, this, and this. And as she stood up and shared it with her classmates, she said, I wish there was someone who had done this to go ahead and help me out. I would have appreciated that. Now, this last story from Roybal High School is going to hit you in a place that you didn't think was in you. The story comes from this woman whose name is Laura. At the Parent-Teacher Center, there's a homeless lady who volunteers. Her name is Itza. Her clothes are mismatched. They don't fit because they're donations from the people who work at the school. One extremely cold, frigid day, Laura looked down at the shoes of Itza that were tethered pieces of leather joined together by a safety pin. And she thought to herself how cold she was that very exact day. And just 2 years earlier, Laura herself was nearly homeless. Homeless. Laura decides she wants to buy some shoes. She can't go home and ask Mom. They don't have the money. So she's going to ask her peers in this low-income neighborhood to help her put $100 together so she can get a pair of nice orthopedic shoes. When I read her story, I said, how much money do you need? I'd like to go ahead and help you out. And when Laura went to Isa with the money for the shoes, this is what Isa said. I don't need any shoes. I don't need any clothes. What I need is a place to live. Laura went home that night to her single-bedroom home and said to her mother, Mom, I want to invite a homeless lady into our house, and the couch that I sleep on, I want her to sleep in, and I'm going to sleep on the floor. A random act of kindness. Her mother says, let me go to the school and I'd like to meet Itza. And when she goes to meet this lady, Itza refuses and turns down the request. She said, I don't think you'll understand, but I've had some really bad experiences when I go off and live in other people's home. It just doesn't work out. I said to Laura, the next time I saw her, what are you going to do with the money? I mean, you've raised all this money. What are you going to do with it? Laura says, well, maybe I'll give it to her so at least she won't have to go ahead and worry about some food. I want to tell you, Laura doesn't have an easy life. When I called Miss Martinez today to check in on the students who weren't doing well, I said, I'm really concerned about Laura. She doesn't quite seem like herself. There's something that's wrong, that's off. And I'm the teacher who doesn't get paid for calling on a Friday morning or whatever day it is to check in on my students. But that's what I do. I mean, if that story didn't impact you, I don't know what will. For every story I told you, there's countless that I haven't told you. So let me take you to Los Angeles City College. These are the people who are in Hollywood. Their life isn't easy. They're the people who clean your toilets. They're the ones that do the housework. They're the ones who are the taxi cab drivers. They don't make a lot of money. And so there's a story of Christina. She goes ahead and babysits 6 kids, brings them all together, and she decides they're going to do a bake sale. First one doesn't go off too well. So she decides, I'm going to take them to the major market. We're going to do a bake sale. By the end of that day, they'd raised $300. She turned it over to UNICEF. Christina is a student who misses many classes. And yet she wanted to take the money that she raised and hand it off to UNICEF to help people around the world. And then there's the story of Karina, another student in the International Students Learning English as a Second Language. And Karina said she goes to Tijuana and she brings the whole family. And she brings bicycles, she brings toys, she brings clothes, and she wraps them up. And she says it breaks her heart to see these small little kids out pedaling just so they can have some food. She imagines, what if that was my kid who was going out and doing that? I'd feel horrible. And so she goes ahead and she wants to share with her children how you can help other people. Simply amazing. And then there's the students from West Los Angeles. Santa Monica College is the place. And at this particular school, there's the story of a student I'll call Javier. And Javier goes to breakfast every day in the cafeteria, buys his breakfast, and there's this guy called Bob. Bob comes up and says, "Can I have $6? I need some food today." And on a bad day, he just takes the money out, goes ahead and gives it to him, doesn't even think about it. And on one day, he says, "I'm going to try something different. What if I say, Bob, I'd like to invite you to join me, and I'm going to pay for breakfast for you." He said, Bob walked off happier than could be, and he said, "I feel better knowing where my money goes to, helping someone else with food." Now the next story has to do with public transportation. It's Jenny. And Jenny goes to Santa Monica College, and she rides the bus every single day. And her random act of kindness, she said, was to express her appreciation to the person who drives the bus. He gets her there safely. She says, how many people lose their lives every day on the road because of accidents? And I am so lucky that this bus driver gets me here safely. And so she went ahead and said that she was simply going to acknowledge and thank the bus driver. I mean, as I look around all your faces, I can see these feelings that you share are the same ones that I have. And for each one of these stories, there are countless others that I haven't gone ahead and told you. This information is so powerful that just this past week, there was a story that ran in the local community connection. It has a picture of me on the front, and it says, our person of the month. And they wanted to go ahead and share some stories of my students in the classroom of what they were doing. And when they heard one of my stories, they said there's so much negativity in the world about these young people, about how lazy they are and how they don't do what they need to do and they only care about themselves. I want to run a whole series. And every month, from here until the next 3 months, there's going to be a different story of one of my students and this random act of kindness, which is incredible. And then, in the same week, this last week, my college over at Santa Monica College, they ran a story in the college newspaper, the Corsair, talking about these incredible acts I've done. There was another story that went online, all in a matter of one single solitary week. And when I think about these collections of stories, you can hear in my voice as I stand up and tell you the passion that I have. And so I'd like to show you this book, this collection. And this is a collection, and it has in here the over 100 stories that I've written based on my student experiences that I'm looking to write a book. There's a blog that I have, and it's called Stories from My Teachings at blogspot.com. Now, imagine what could happen if I took these ideas that I'm going ahead and sharing with you and had you share them with the businesses that you work in the world. And let me tell you what I think that might look like. Now, in today's business world, I have an advisor at the Small Business Development Center at Santa Monica College who's helping me with my business. And he said the #1 problem that all of you face in your business is the turnover of employees. I know that in today's business, money is short. We don't have a lot of it. We're trying to figure out how we can do more with less. And so one company went ahead and decided one way to go ahead and cut back on costs is to eliminate the training position. We don't need those trainers. It's a waste of time. We've got the best of the best employees out there, and we'll just take those best employees and we'll have them train the new people. They forgot about this. That best employee has a family with a mortgage on their house, has to go ahead and take care of their senior ailing parents, has kids in an athletic program, needs a second job to go ahead and get by. And so when they're given this opportunity to train other people, is that where their mind's at? I don't think so. Because when the company needs the person to go ahead and do the work, are they going to ask the new employee or are they going to ask the experienced one? They're going to pull this guy who knows his stuff and they're going to take him offline so he can go ahead and work. And when he gets ahead and works lots of hours, it's going to get overtime. He's going to be a happy camper. And the new employee just goes ahead, head down, walks out the door, and he needs another job. We could change that. One of the big features that business are missing out are what are called these soft skills. How do we relate and interrelate with different people in our companies and our organizations? What if we took these random acts of kindness and in your company, I worked with the HR department and we created a way that we could implement a random acts of kindness in our business so that employees would actually talk nicely to one another. They'd help one another out. And that when you treat people a nice way and they feel validated, the whole overall effectiveness of a company is naturally going to go ahead and increase. And then, when you had a company meeting, whether it was the safety meeting, whether it was the HR meeting, whether it was the sexual harassment or the company picnic, you went ahead and you had people share these stories of random acts of kindness. How many think that would improve the overall morale in your company? Let me see, raise your hands. Yeah, it's absolutely unanimous. And then what we could do is we could expand it to our customers. In Shay's book that he goes ahead and he talks about the Zappos, the pursuit of happiness, profits, and purpose, he talks about getting the basic community involved. And in his community involvement, in the city of Las Vegas, he's bought 4 city blocks. His company is moving from the location where it was at to downtown Las Vegas. Where? To City Hall. To City Hall. And he goes ahead and he puts out this book I want to show you. I was so impressed by the company that I was there a week ago on Monday. Anybody who wants to get a copy of this book, it talks about all the exciting and fascinating activities. These are stories and pictures of the fun that people have at their particular company, can go ahead and pick up one of these. And so when you talk about what you're doing in the community, why not get your employees to expand and pay it forward? I remember as a business person, there's a saying, and the saying goes like this. If you make someone mad, they'll go ahead and tell tens and hundreds and thousands of people. You guys familiar with the saying? You make a person happy, and you just get a little bit more response. And so what if we went ahead and we took these ideas and we put them out in our newsletters? What happens if we use Facebook? What happens if we use Twitter? That you could go ahead and tweet all these wonderful, incredible things. As I sat here in your meeting today, I'm really inspired that you begin your meeting going ahead and talking about happy news, about good things that are going ahead and happening. You and I are on the same team. You work to help empower the youth and the young people in our world to make it truly a better place. So what about the two of us coming together to work to go ahead and bring these random acts of kindness out to the community? So let me reflect on where I've been today. I began today telling you a story of how I read a book called The Pursuit of Happiness, Profits, and Purpose. And I took this random act of kindness. I'd offered it to my students who took these random acts of kindness that changed their hearts, their ways, and their interactions with the world. And then I shared how you could use this in your particular company, in your organization. And if you're willing to join me on this process, I want you to take a moment out right now. And I want to ask you to go out and do something in your community today, beyond the money that you paid, beyond the raffle that you have. I want you to think about an idea of something that you could do, a random act of kindness for someone in our community. And I want you to share that with a partner right now. Go ahead and talk to your partner about something that you could do, a random act of kindness when you leave this meeting here today. I'll give you a minute to think about it. And go ahead and share it with someone that you're sitting next to.
Define random.
Random is just anything. It could be simply opening the door for someone. It could be taking out the trash. It could be saying hello to the person at the grocery store. It could be carrying a box of things. It could be helping a senior citizen.
I did it before the meeting started. I got the lighter so we could keep the food hot. So we had hot food.
Okay, awesome. Someone else? Someone else? Can I hear someone else? I see you guys talking. There's some minds going here. What are you thinking about?
You go out and say hello, or good morning, or good afternoon to someone who you may see all the time, but you never say anything. You'd be surprised what it does to that person as well as to you.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Well, I have one more from you guys over here. I saw you guys talking to one another. What were you guys thinking about?
I was thinking if somebody comes to my store, I give a couple of dollars to them.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. I'm here. Okay, where's your store? Where should we go? Where should we go ahead and chat? And yourself?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I noticed that when I'm out walking, I take a walk every morning. And when I'm passing other walkers, I'm usually the one to say good morning. Yeah. And many of these people who are out walking don't even speak English, and they try to say good morning back to me, and it's hard for some of them to do that.
Right. But it's amazing what these small little things of talking to strangers or just smiling at other people. There's a smile. It does a lot. Julie, what do you think about yourself?
Common courtesy.
I'm sorry?
Common courtesy.
Yeah.
And that's something I think a lot of us know that is very prevalent here in San Fernando that might be missing in other parts of Los Angeles. But for instance, this morning I was backing out on the clay from leaving a meeting, and somebody let me in. They didn't have to. They could have whizzed by and the cars kept going, but they stopped. And that's something.
Did you tell them they were number one when you left?
It's
a reserve one.
Okay, all right. I guess it means your turn next. What's the random act of kindness that you're going to go ahead and do when you leave?
Well, I
here?
wish I would have been to this speech before I started my day.
Guilty as charged.
I'm guilty as charged. I've had the worst attitude all day because I've been encountering people that I'm familiar with that I just don't feel we're all working together and we're making mistakes that don't need to be made. And I often wonder, could a random act of kindness avert some of the attitudes that people have? And I don't know the answer. I think I'm worth maybe they get paid too much. I don't know.
There you go.
Well,
So what's my random act going to be today?
Yeah.
You won't kill me.
To a stranger.
Does it have to be a stranger?
It doesn't have to be a stranger.
I think I might just take the elevator down when I leave the meeting and let some of the people that would like some exercise take the stairs.
There you go.
You're too quick to us, Seth.
Yes?
I didn't have one today,
Okay.
except to be nice to Jeanette, but other than that,
Oh my gosh.
I was in Bonds,
Oh, definitely random, right?
and there was a lady ahead of me, and I was in the fast lane, you know, the...
Right. The one of 8 items or less.
And so, this lady of color that was ahead of me, she didn't have enough money.
Right.
And she was short $2.83. And they were trying to figure out how they're going to do this. It was 7 minutes while they're doing this. And I said, Kathy, I says, here. And I pushed over $3.
Right.
And now everybody in the store wants to borrow money.
It's not bad.
I was only doing it to get the hell out of that store.
That's why it doesn't count.
I guess that one doesn't count. But it's, so as we listen to these stories, and we've gone around the room, everyone has a small, simple thing that they can do. So I'd like to ask you to join me on this mission, taking my random acts of kindness that I do in my classroom, and I'd like you all to share it with the city of San Fernando. And it would be incredible if we could take the image that San Fernando has and make it as the shining light of the San Fernando Valley. What do you say, guys?
Here, here.
All right, thank you so much.